Jane, and thank you for inviting me here to speak today. This is a big opportunity for us because the whole world of behavioural change and behavioural science is actually quite new to us, coming from a technology perspective. So I'm just going to talk briefly about TSSG, a quick intro to TSSG, and a little bit about the expectations that we have on mHealth technology and how we as TSSG can help meet those expectations. And if there's time, I'll have a quick run through some types of projects that we're working on. So my own background is in computer science, and I worked for over 10 years in the life sciences sector. So I brought that with me into the ICT research world that when joining TSSG. So TSSG, as Jane mentioned, we're based in WIT, and there are over 400 researchers within WIT. The part I sit in is the Telecommunications Software and Systems Group, but there is, of course, two other areas that we strategically focus our research on: pharmaceutical and molecular biotechnology and advanced materials engineering. So we have, as Jane mentioned, we have a strong track record in Europe of achieving successful proposals from the European Commission from FP7 and Horizon 2020, and we're currently working on new proposals in these areas as well. So we have a strong economic impact on our region as well. So we work a lot with companies, from somebody coming in off the street with an idea to an established company. And we do a lot of this through Enterprise Ireland funding to help companies through innovation partnerships. If they've identified a specific area that is quite innovative, we'll help them develop that and bring it to market with them as well. So again, this slide is just emphasising that we work quite a lot with industry as well as the research side. And I'll move past that one. So we have a mix of basic and applied research, and with that then follows on our commercial focus too of developing successful technology spin-outs at companies. Our most successful spin-out technology was through a company called Feed Henry, which is a mobile platform, which was acquired by Red Hat Linux in 2014 for $82 million. So we do want to bring things that are say tangible and that have market value out there. So I suppose before I start talking about our expectations for mHealth, there's something that has hit me as we're talking here today and listening to the other presentations. There's one word that keeps popping up, and that's intervention. The first time I mentioned intervention in a meeting with some engineers, people started getting very uncomfortable in the room, and they thought something else was coming and started thinking, do I know something about them that I shouldn't know? So it just highlights that we speak a different language. We don't speak the same language, but we need to learn to speak it, be clinicians, health psychologists and technologists. I think we're getting there, and the ball is definitely rolling in the right direction, but it is something that it highlights that we have a little way to go on that side of things. So for me, sometimes I think I'm a little bit like this little guy up here. Are we expecting too much, and how can we break this down into something that we can say deliver value to the market? So in this sense, it's to the patient to actually make a difference. So I know my expectations for mHealth are quite big, and that spills over from using mHealth using apps in other industries, be it retail or banking. We expect a lot. We expect information now. We expect advice. We want everything now. So I think in my opinion, they're not unrealistic expectations, because a lot of the technology is there. It's just trying to pull those pieces together to actually deliver something that ticks all the boxes. So for the expectations, and a lot of this has already been probably mentioned by some of the other speakers, but definitely making things accessible, faster, better and cheaper, because we have to think about the financial impact of this as well. Usability, again, has been mentioned a few times this morning, so it is something that we view as critical as well in any type of technology we develop. And the personalising solutions, and there was a mention of predictive analytics up there, and Susan talked about machine learning. It's really highlighted, I suppose, by Google's recent I/O event that artificial intelligence in healthcare is becoming a major thing, and that we have the expertise to actually, develop those machine learning algorithms. And what we don't have, I suppose, is the the access maybe to the clinicians or to the patients, to the understanding what exactly do we need to solve. We have the tech expertise, but there is a gap on the actual, from a clinical need perspective. Again, interoperability is a major thing when you look at all the systems that are out there and how many of them are actually interoperable. There's a lot of legacy data out there. You know, it's a big issue, and we need to make sure that anything we develop from here on is very interoperable. And of course, data security, and I think Jim is talking about that later on. We do have a group in TSSG who focus on data mining and data analytics, and also on privacy and data trust security as well. So we do quite a bit in that area as well. There's just one thing I want to pull out of this graphic here, and that is over on the far left, 81% of people are more likely to use a device if their HCP recommended it. And probably one of the first times I saw that is when I was looking at TickerFit, and the fact that the way that is being prescribed, or that whole model, is something that appeals to, I suppose, me if I was coming at it from a patient perspective, but also from a regulatory, a compliance, a technology, that side as well. I think it's hugely important, and it can really it can differentiate some of the noise, the apps that are out there that maybe aren't looking at what the patient needs, and maybe not delivering back information to the patient that is correct, which is obviously very important. So the barriers, or the perceived barriers, because maybe some of these aren't barriers for some people who are already working in the industry. But again, funding is one of the major things, obviously, that always hits, whether it's internally in our organisation where we're writing proposals and trying to get funding, or whether it's companies coming into us. They have great ideas, but how are they going to fund those ideas and the development? So that is a barrier, although I will counter that with saying that we also see a huge increase in funding in digital health. So it's trying to navigate that and secure that funding. I've already mentioned interoperability. The regulatory framework is obviously something that some people shy away from. We've talked about security, privacy, reliability, and trust. So I know there was a few talks there on diabetes as well. And one of the things that stands out to me of some of the research I was doing, that 80% of 211 diabetes apps that examined did not have any privacy policies. You know, that's a little bit concerning, and it's definitely something that we need to look at and understand how we can counter that and make sure that anything we do develop is secure, people's data is protected. The business models as well. So again, are these prescribed apps? How does the end user, I'm used to end user talk, the patient I should say, how does the patient obtain this app? Is it through, as I say, prescribed through a GP or a consultant? So again, that's something that needs to be figured out, and how is that going to be charged? Is that incorporated into the GP or the consultant's cost, or how is that dealt with? The lack of clinical evidence, of course, is something that has come up this morning, and it's something that we've recognised as well from our perspective. Another one, the lack of smartphone usage by the older population who are chronically ill. Now this, I think, is something that is changing a little bit as well. Even if I look at this, my father turned 70 this year, and one of the presents he got was a smartphone, his first smartphone, and he is delighted. And he is definitely not somebody who is interested in technology per se, but the functionality that it's now giving him. You know, so I think it's something that even that's changing, and obviously will change as time moves on as well. The network infrastructure planning, that is, we would have a lot of deep knowledge in underlying networks and how information can be extracted from networks, and that's something I think that needs to be looked at from a mHealth perspective as well, of how information can be extracted from smartphones. Is the infrastructure in place for people to deliver that information to clinicians? So again, one of the other issues, there's so much out there, and I think that's again been highlighted by a lot of the stats that people have put up earlier today. There's so many out there. What are the good ones? Where do I start? So that's a definite issue that we see. So from TSSG's perspective, the first one is as I say, something new. And when I talked to Jane a few months ago, we hadn't actually engaged with patients or clinicians at that point. Since then, we have started to gain access to clinicians for specific projects, but it is something that we recognise the importance of it, but we want to do more. There's no real value in us talking directly to patients as I see it, because how we interpret what they tell us may not be the correct interpretation. We need somebody who is qualified in that area to interpret that data, and that we can work with them then to see how we can translate that into a technology solution. The next one is near and dear to my heart, building safe, compliant software. Coming from a career in the life sciences industry where everything you do revolves around patient safety. You can't just change a line of code. You can't just make changes on the fly, which developers are used to. So this is something that I'm looking at, and that I've spoken with a great group in DKIT and Lero. I think there might be some people here from Lero today, but headed up there by Dr. Fergal McCaffrey and the work he's doing, not only around software as a medical device, but also in mobile medical apps. So this is something that we are incorporating into any new technology we built in this area, that it will be built in such a way that it gets to the stage where it can be easily compliant with FDA regulations, INB, EMA, whatever the regulatory body is out there. And I think that's a key thing for us, that it's not just building technology and getting it out there, it's building safe software. And but again, we need help from others who have extensive expertise in this area, and that's something that we want to continue to do. Some of the other areas we're looking at, this of course whole area is a growing ecosystem. There's so many pieces to it. Some of the architectures we work with, the one I've mentioned here is the microservices concept. So basically this architecture is programming language agnostic, so it allows for greater interoperability, and it also allows you to add pieces on at a later date where you don't have to do a major overhaul of your architecture, which again saves cost, but also maintains a solid design there of building and adding on value-added services for the patient as it moves through. So again, I spoke of interoperability and some of the other areas then that are, I'm sure you're familiar with, that we would work with real-time capture. Susan mentioned there about BLE, so working with BLE enabled devices to capture that information through your smartphone, which can act as your gateway. A seamless upload of that data to the cloud. We don't want the patient seeing obviously any of the workings of this, and it has to be seamless. If you don't have data coverage, making sure then that it's recorded in a certain way and time-stamped, that it can be uploaded when you do have data coverage, again, all happening in the background. Context-based information. We've done a lot of context-based work through European projects, through a project called Pervasive Communities, and this is, and Societies is another major project we've worked on. So we're taking that knowledge and applying it into various verticals, not just mHealth, but that is the one obviously that is of interest to us at the moment, and seeing how we can help people capture context-based information to identify trends or patterns in their disease, if it's chronic disease management. Also, cross-platform compatibility. So again, we've talked a lot this morning. You hear about iOS device or iOS apps, or whether it's Android apps. One of the things that we're looking at as well is encouraging hybrid development. So this is build once and it deploys everywhere in iOS and Android. And I'm sure the app developers in the audience are very familiar with that. And Facebook have actually released a new technology last year, a new language called React Native, that makes that hybrid experience a little richer, so it looks closer to a native iOS app or a native Android app. So again, this is, I suppose, from a financial perspective of what you can develop and how you can maintain it easily. So that, and last but not least, the usability. So again, Dr. Stenson and Susan, and I'm sure some of the others have talked about usability, and this is for us a very critical part too. We have a unit dedicated to creative development who work on storyboarding, brainstorming, work with typically with our users, which we think need to start saying looking at the user journey, but actually looking at the patient journey. So it's hugely critical for us to develop something that allows people to continue to use it. Again, you talk about the behaviour. While we don't explicitly study behavioural change, I suppose we, through our work, we would be looking at why do people use these and will they keep using the apps. So again, this, you've probably heard of this before, but if you have to explain it, it's not really that good. So that is somewhere where we have expertise. So we have, as I say, creative development unit, and we also have a verification and validation unit in our group who focus on testing, and we are looking at now kind of retraining that group or bringing that group into a whole level of understanding FTA compliance, of how to run validation testing from that side. It's not a huge leap of faith from where we're going at the moment, so that's something that we're building into our technology as well. So some of the areas to watch are, I don't know how we're going on time. I'll move quickly through these. So Med.io is a cloud-based platform even that facilitates real-time communication with sensorized device or drug delivery systems. So just using the inhaler here as an example, and again, it's BLE enabled, the information, it's all about correct usage of the inhaler because there's such a high percentage who do not use their inhalers correctly. So again, it's having this information in the cloud, being able to mine that data, being able to have sync easily from the cloud to the phone, and then having it in such a way that it can be accessed by a clinician if that is what's needed. The other areas we're looking at it in supporting clinicians at point of care, it's trying to upgrade the doctor's bag from our perspective, and how we can harness the power of our smartphones. So what can our smartphones do right now? We've got a microphone on our phones, so it can record our voice. We've got cameras, it can take pictures, and there's new add-on devices there for add-on microscope to actually help clinicians deliver results faster, quicker. And again, on the voice recording, that could have an impact maybe in mental health, because there is a lot of voice analysis research being done at the moment. Some of it is still in its infancy, but how we can capture that information, perhaps along with gathering information from social media, how we can pull that all together, and what can we tell from that, and how can we help people. And again, getting back to, as I say, the ticker fit model of prescribing this through a GP is something that we want to continue as well, because we see the value of that involvement all the way through. This is a project we're working on. A clinical study has already been completed, and it's changing the way the normal vision testing is done, your eye tests. So again, it's how can we use the mobile platform to facilitate this type of testing, large scale, in optometrists, opticians' offices, wherever it may be. There's the pictures up here are from a project in the UK that you may be familiar with, Peak, who've done fantastic work on preventing blindness in developing countries. So this is, while we're not using the same technology, it's just, I suppose, highlighting what we can do with our phones and how valuable they can be. And I'll just finish up on quickly on two or three other areas that my colleagues, Dr. Sazi Balasubramaniam and Dr. Michael Boris are working on. So Sazi has coined the term Internet of Bio-Nano Things. We are all familiar with Internet of Things, but moving that, and maybe even Internet of Nano Things. But Internet of Bio-Nano Things is moving it to a whole other scale. When we look at nano things, we're talking about devices on the scale of 1 billionth to a metre. So imagine having devices like that, how many they could be embedded in your body, and the information that could be extracted from these. So we're really looking at how they can, even to the stage of using synthetic biology and nanotechnology to develop things that are can be re-engineered, reused, modified at the biological cell level. So this is a really, really interesting area of research. It is more at the blue sky level, but it's something that we're trying to progress, and would I suppose envisage it falling in under the mHealth area. So again, quickly, mobile terahertz imaging. Terahertz imaging has been out there for a while, but we're looking at, can we take this level of imaging into medical imaging and bring it down to a mobile phone, and what can we do with that? And my colleague, Dr. Michael Barris, is the guy leading that, and he's also looking at augmented reality for nano surgery, which again opens up many new avenues, and there is some work in this area already. And one of the, I suppose, key factors here is to help with precision and where we can actually go with that. So partnerships, we're delighted to talk to people. We welcome the opportunity to talk to clinicians, health psychologists, app development companies, whoever it may be in this whole that fall in under the mHealth area, because this is something that we recognise that we need to work with others. So we have the technology expertise and the research, but we do need, there are a few missing pieces of the jigsaw for us to develop something that we can really make a difference for our patients out there. Thank you.